After over 20 years of civil war and political instability in Afghanistan, in 1994 a group called the Taliban became prominent, and 2 years later the Taliban took over the Afghan capital, Kabul. People hoped that the Taliban would provide stability to the country. However, it soon imposed a strict and oppressive order based on its misinterpretation of Islamic law. The wrath of the Taliban was insane and cruel. The Taliban were against all women action and involvement in society. The Taliban is a predominantly Pashtun Islamic fundamentalist group that ruled against Afghanistan from 1996 until 2001. It was created in the early 1990s by the Mujahideen, which are Islamic fighters who resisted Soviets when they took over in 1979 to 1989. The leader of the Taliban was a man named Mullah Muhammad Omar. The Taliban controlled about 90% of the country before being overthrown in 2001. The Taliban's brand of justice was drawn from the Pashtuns' pre-Islamic tribal code and interpretations. The regime neglected social services and other basic state functions. They enforced prohibitions on behavior that they deemed non-Islamic. Before the rule of the Taliban in the early 1990s, 70% of the school teachers, 50% of the government workers and university students, and 40% of the doctors in Kabul were women. After becoming in power, all rights for women were lost. Women were imprisoned in their homes. All women were forced to quit their jobs and to withdraw from all education. The Taliban even closed all women universities in Afghanistan. The Taliban were involved in many acts of violence against women. This includes rape, abduction, and forced marriage. One major rule is that women are not allowed to walk on the streets without a male present to escort them. This has to be a relative, not just any random male. There was a mother which had a sick child. They had to go see a doctor, but the mother had no escort. So the mother set out, cradling her child to the doctors. She got spotted by a Taliban guard who tried to stop her, but the mother did not stop. She was destined to get her child to go to the doctors. Instead of the guard ignoring her because of her child needing a doctor and medical care, he raised his weapon and shot her repeatedly till the mother had fallen to the ground. The Taliban enforced the wearing of the burqa with threats of fines and on-the-spot beatings. If accidentally a woman's feet or ankles were showing, she would be severely punished. Women were required to be covered from head to toe. They also banned all music and television. The Taliban jailed many and all men whose beards they deemed to be too short. In August 1998, the Taliban militia forces captured the city of Mazari in the northwest of Afghanistan. This was the only major city that was against the Taliban rule. The people of the city were called the Hazaras. The Taliban wanted all of the Hazaras dead because of their disbelief in the Taliban rule. Many men and boys were killed. The men were put into detention camps and killed. They were transported in cargo trucks that held 150 people for a 130-kilometer trip. All of the men who suffered and died from heat stroke in the containers. The rest of the men were killed and put into body pits. The wives and women of the city were raped, abused, and killed. The Taliban wanted to kill many people. They wanted to kill as many people as they could. Mass genocide of the Hazaras occurred. The Taliban has a special relationship with Al-Qaeda. The leader of Al-Qaeda was Osama bin Laden. Both of these groups are based off the Islamic roots. They are both fundamentalist groups which are involved in different terrorist acts. These groups are both anti-Westernization. Both Al-Qaeda and the Taliban are operated out of Afghanistan. The Taliban and Al-Qaeda work together. The Taliban had land in Afghanistan that was needed by Al-Qaeda for training camps. Al-Qaeda is a rich organization, and the Taliban needed funding for their country and all of the events that are taking place by the Taliban. These two groups worked together and both got what they needed. Al-Qaeda got land, and the Taliban got money.